27, 26, 25, 24, 23, 22, 21, 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
And there isn't one of us that doesn't want to be someplace else. This is what we do. Who we are.
Survive a war, you gotta become war.
Boom. And welcome back to Rambo and Friends. It has been way too long. Oh, Mark Vegas, I see all you guys piling in. Hey, if you could do me a favor, hit that positive affirmation button on whatever platform it is that you are going to hang out with us on. So if you're over on Rumble, hit that thumbs up. If you're over on pill.net, please take that red pill. If you're over on X, share the show out, hit the thumbs up, drop a comment, let your friends know that we're here. And very shortly, I just found out that I can live stream to Facebook, Commie Book, whatever it is you might want to call it. I almost did it to my personal account today, as I've been very transparent. There's many people on X that like to tell me that I'm some anonymous fag or whatever. They're not at all following my posts, so I don't expect them to. I don't expect everyone to know me, but I am very transparent about who I am. My mom's last name is out there on the internet, as many of you have been privy to, and we will touch on that here just shortly. But it's been an absolutely awesome, amazing week off, but I will say I missed you guys all very, very much. I love doing this, so it was difficult for me to put down, and I got told to put my phone down multiple times while we were on the beach, but I did my best. I did my best to stay connected while disconnecting. But with that being said, you guys are in for another amazing treat today. You guys know him. You guys love him. This is a whole protect your mind and control your emotions type of show. If you are sensitive about your beliefs with what is going on, I hate saying this, but tune out, because today will not be for the people that are emotionally invested in their beliefs. This is a show that is meant and designed to expand your thought process. No one on this show believes that they are 100% correct all of the time. What we do is we investigate and look into possibilities and connect dots, and hopefully encourage people to start thinking on a much freer, what we like to believe, higher plane than just believing everything the mainstream media is feeding you, spoon feeding you like baby food. So with that being said, let's bring on the gentleman of the hour. Well, hold on. It's been a while. I almost forgot.
I wouldn't miss a chance to talk to my friends. These are my friends.
And wait, hold on, because there was a new one. I got to add this one.
Friends, delegates, and fellow citizens, I stand before you this evening with a message of confidence, strength, and hope.
With a freaking My Pillow on his ear. What's up, JFanon Smart?
Hey, man. It's like a big ravioli.
This show's not going to be the same as the last one. Hey, can I say something real quick? Can I give a little preemptive thing before we get into anything tonight? I love you too, right? I firmly do have some of my own beliefs, although I'm open to being wrong and exploring other options all the time. Sarge and Feisty are two of my favorite people on the planet. Nothing has changed going into this show. I respect their research and opinions probably more than most. I absolutely adore those two. However, I do feel like some of the opinions on this show are going to be slightly different, and I don't want it to be taken like I'm going against them. I'm not. I'm not. We're exploring other avenues of the thought process that is the information war. Would you guys agree with that?
100%.
Absolutely. Yeah. I would also add that there's different narratives that can be correct at the same time.
Yeah.
And that's why I love you. Well, let's start a little bit lighter before we get into it. John, how you been? How's your summer been, buddy?
Summer's been busy, man. I've got let's see, what is it, the 29th? So 19 days, 21 days until I drop my daughter off at college. 21 days until I'm an absolute puddle, leaving her there. I'm excited for her, I really am. Like I'm mostly really excited to see what she does and to watch her soar, but it's going to be a hard day for sure.
We have one. You guys all know the story, right? So the brief story is that the oldest daughter in this household was a victim herself, and she's off to West Virginia. She's off to West Virginia in just like a week and a half.
Wow.
Same deal. Yeah. So not nearly. I didn't bring the girl all the way up, but I stepped in to help when shortly after all of the trauma took place. So I've taken a huge loving to every part of this family that I entered just over 2 years ago, and they've brought me and my son in just as much as I've done for them. So I can't possibly understand exactly what you're talking about, but there's an aspect of it that I'm about to see her mom go through.
It's kind of what it is. I think it's like, she's an adult. She's now moving on to the next stage of her life, and the realization kind of hit my wife and I that, yeah, I mean, this is like the last summer we know she's going to be at home. She may be doing internships. She may be doing other stuff. But yeah, this is it. This is the last, this is the end of her contiguous presence at our house.
You know what you could do, John? You could set up a big long table and invite like 12 people over and have the last summer buffet.
The last summer. Maybe I could get like that guy in blue and another dude
With a big bell.
Yeah, who showed his ball sack on TV.
What?
That guy.
That was a hole in the stocking, so you got to be careful about your facts.
Wait, was that a satanic Olympic opening reference?
No, it was a retarded Olympic opening reference.
Bro, you're so funny.
The last summer. That's good.
I mean, it's only one letter away. Or no, what? 3? MNOP. I'm impaired. Sorry.
Paul, how's your summer been, Paul?
It's getting more and more impaired. Like over the last 2 weeks, both John and I have we can feel our IQ dropping, and we have conversations on the phone, and we can't remember words and sentences, and we're just like, I think this is going on. What do you think?
Or we'll be in the middle of a conversation. I'm in the middle of a sentence. I'm like, I totally forgot what I was going to say.
I'm drinking Red Bull like mad now because it doesn't make me smarter, but at least I can do simple tasks like take out the garbage, your shoes on,
Nothing but true 17 wants to fight right from the beginning.
Yeah, I see that. That's all right. I don't think we'll be proven correct.
Or wrong.
I don't think that would be revealed, but
I think Obama is going to get arrested and you'll see him get executed. But it's not.
Yeah. So none but truth. Let me. So I know these guys pretty good, and I have my beliefs. I don't think that we've ever come out and said he is a good guy. If we did, it was only in reference to the possibility because of some of the things that we've seen. Barack Obama, 100%, without question, did things that helped what we believe the plan was unfold the way it did. Whether or not, this is my belief, I'm not speaking for these two guys, but whether or not that means he and his husband, Michael, were controlled in a way that they helped the plan, that's always possible. Or is it also possible that this goes way back further than we're aware, and the movie aspect of people playing roles to expose the greater evil is a possibility? It's just something we've explored. You are welcome to use your own discernment, especially when we have conversations like that, because they're not easy. They're not easy conversations, right? They're just not. So.
Yeah. Also, just to clarify, what we're going to talk about today is, what the biggest date faggery in all of Qdom, in all of Qville. The Qs all gathered together and made their date faggery. What we're going to talk about today is the biggest date faggery, but you got to understand that, like, when we talk about Obama being a good guy, I think approximately all of the population will believe after this is done that he's a bad guy, he was executed, all these things.
Mm-hmm.
Do I think that is the actual truth of what happened? No. Am I going to explain that to everybody in great detail? No.
We've talked about it in the past. I mean, it kind of starts with the idea that would Q have started dropping in October of 2017 if there was any sort of danger at all?
There's more going on than it appears. There always has been in recorded history. There's really good reasons for that. It's very non-intuitive and very difficult to get your head around. If you don't believe that, that's fine. That's why it's there.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to go deeper, like Q said, the choice to know will be yours. But you need to do it yourself.
Let me pause you guys for a second, because I want to dive deep into this, but I want to address something quick, like we talked about pre-show, if you don't mind, real quick, with my son, because of a post I made last night. I would like to do this quick and get out of the way. We went in depth pre-show. I'd like to just do a surface level, the same conversation that we had pre-show.
Yeah, you go. I gotta shut the door. I get some people.
Yeah, go ahead. Do your thing. Do your thing. This is going to be me just addressing something because of a post I made last night. So I wanted to allow everybody to get in here before I said this. So I'm glad that these guys did that little bit of banner with me. And before we get into anything deep, last night, about 1 or 2 in the morning, whatever it was, I was laying in bed, not able to sleep, because today I was to meet the DA that is doing the prosecution of my mother in her criminal trial for abusing my son and victim number 1, which would be another young man that also lived in that house. What I was told was that today we would meet with the DA. My son would get his pregame interview with the DA so that they could go over, whatever it was that was said in the interviews with the police and stuff before. And then tomorrow the jury would be selected. And then tomorrow afternoon, the criminal trial would begin. And the other part of that was that there was one court case ahead of us, and that person would be taking a plea sentence. And being that person would take a plea sentence, a courthouse as large as the one that we're dealing with, as large and corrupt as the one that we're dealing with, would then move right on to the next one. So we were basically put on standby, and we were told that there was a 99% chance that we would be going to war starting tomorrow. And halfway through the plea sentence, the person that was ahead of us decided to get angry, upset, tell the judge to go F himself and say, I'm not taking the plea sentence. We're going to trial. So yet again, the can has been kicked down the road. Wow. Here's the problem with that. It's not just a criminal trial that I'm dealing with. I'm also dealing with a PFA, protection from abuse, temporary custody that I have for my son. That is a separate court hearing. And then there's also a support aspect to this whole thing where there's money, and we've been arguing, and honestly, I've been being harassed about the financial aspect of it. We don't have to get into those details, but because this can kick down the road, now those two also have to be kicked down the road. We have been given a date. The date is November 18th, at which time we are the priority case. There's nobody ahead of us this time. So it's happening on November 18th, but that's 2 months away now. Now, that sucks because of what? That sucks because there's lawyer fees in doing all of the emails it takes and postponing, or whatever the term is, to push those other court dates down the road. My lawyer has to do that. And all of the travel I may look. I can't just not be present for these things. So for some of them, I will have to drive 2.5 hours to Philly and back to make sure that I'm there so that we can kick the can down the road for the other court hearings. And I will then have to take work off. So those are all the negatives. There's some really huge positives. My son will now be halfway through his second year of school here, successfully. I have. So good grades, doing good in sports. Um, Honestly, he's become a positive aspect of this very large family, right? And I want to show a couple of those pictures before we move on because we just got family pictures back. And just for the idea of full transparency, I asked Kim and she's okay with it, so we're going to show some of those family pictures. But everybody that shared that post last night, I want to say thank you very, very much. For all of you that prayed, you have no idea how much that means to me. And for some of you that donated yet again, you have no idea because last night when I posted it, I did it completely out of fear and the inability to sleep because I was anxious. I don't want to see my son have to go on the stand and be cross-examined by somebody that's going to try to make him look like a liar for something that he's been doing his best to process and eliminate from his emotional status. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So when you put a 12-year-old and a 13-year-old through not only the traumatic experience they're dealing with right now, but some of which I am guilty of putting him through. He would never have been in her custody if it wasn't for the addiction shit that I went through for the first portion of his life. So now we've come back together. We've discussed counseling, and we're going to school, and we're doing sports, and we're doing dentist appointments and doctors. Vacation where we just went and we did some confidence building things like zip lines and relationship building things like buying a lacrosse net and going out and practicing together. All these things, and now I have to drive him 2.5 hours back to the scene of the most recent crime, even though we're trying to get through all of the crimes and move forward, and have him be cross-examined and tried to look like a liar. That sucks. So I just wanted to say, I wanted to tell you guys all what happened today for full transparency, especially because some of you chose to support monetarily. And for that, I don't know how I will ever say thank you. It goes for a whole lot of people. The first round ends last night and today. But I also want you to know with full transparency what we're going through as a family and what is to come. So we now have about 2 months before we will have to face this again. And that kind of is the story. Now, if I can, Kim asked me to share these if I was going to share that story. You guys haven't seen these yet either.
No.
So this is just a few photos I'd like to show. So we went and did family photos in the beginning of the summer, and it's actually really cool. So I've shared my whole story with you guys, and this is the family that I'm talking about. So there's Kim and I. This lady did a really good job, right? Make America Great Again hat, by the way. Who the hell pulls that off? Who goes to family photos with a MAGA hat on? Just saying. She let me. I'm not going to act like I did that by myself. But here's all the kids. So there's me, and this is the oldest. I was talking about going to West Virginia. Kim, and these four on the outside would be hers, and this is who we're talking about when it comes to court. My son. Let's see here.
Oh, gaggle.
Yeah, it's a whole crew. It really is a whole crew. It's like, so there's me and all the boys. So this little man, he's the first one that went to school and called me his dad. So that's pretty damn cool. Yeah, he's a little football and lacrosse prodigy. Love that kid. And then that's my mini me right there. So, let's see. There's me and the boys again. And there's the girls.
Oh.
Yeah. Yep. So,
Pretty good
us. And I wanted you guys to all to know who it is that you've helped, what it is that's happening in the future, and just take that moment to be as transparent as possible. Of course, there's tons and tons of details that I'm not going to get into that we discussed with the DA, and that's what I talked to my two friends about before the show. But I will say that as transparent as I've tried to be and as transparent as I plan to be in the future. When it's appropriate to talk about those things, I will talk about those with you as well. Okay? That is that.
That's
It's kind of
awesome.
exhausting. It's exhausting to talk about.
That's all I have to say about that.
Okay. All right. So all of that emotional, friendly, fun stuff aside, do you guys want to? Is there an easy way to get into this ultimate Moab of date fagging that you guys plan to do today?
Maybe we do the overview of how we.
Yeah, I think the best way to explain this is to explain it in the order that we came to each level of understanding it, because it's much easier to see it now than it was 2 weeks ago when we hatched it.
Yeah.
It started off with me being so God, I can't think of words.
Drugged.
Sad, melancholy, drugged, sedated, roofied. Thank you. So this was around the 15th or so of the month. So right in the middle of the month. It was a couple days after the assassination. I was thinking to myself, we are pretty drugged up, and it's getting bad. Like I was noticing at the time people were weaving on the road and stuff more than usual, and like they're sedating us real bad. It's going to be affecting people's work product. It's affecting people's cognition. So there's certain sectors of the economy that are going to be going, right?
Slow down, Paul. So I'm aware of what you're talking about, but I'm not sure everybody kept up with that. You are suggesting that the chemtrails that we see with our own eyes are also potentially sedating us.
My personal opinion is it's not the chemtrails we see, it's something else. And the chemtrails are a separate thing that will be understood by the public as what's causing it. It doesn't really matter if you believe it's the chemtrails that you see or not, but I personally just don't believe that. I think they have better technology for doing it. But bottom line is, I think they, whoever you choose to believe they is, have been spraying stuff in the air probably for years, but certainly since the last week of June 2023. I noticed symptoms of lithium exposure starting to pop up, and everybody I talked to was having the same thing. And then for about 60 days, the symptoms went up linearly to where it was, I'm no expert, but in my opinion, I'm sitting there looking at the symptoms going, this is like starting to get medically dangerous. And then all of a sudden it switched to something else. So they ramped up 60 days with what appeared to be lithium just from the symptom reports. And I talked to people in the UK, I talked to people in Australia, and I talked to people all across the United States. Everybody was reporting the same symptomology. There's a complex word for you. It's like a $2 word.
Symptomology.
But anyway,
oh no.
So then it switched to something else, and it's more similar to what it is now. John and I have had, 100 conversations about this over the last year, and they change it. They'll morph the symptoms once in a while. It'll go up and down. It'll disappear for a couple days and then go back. And what's funny is John's in Minnesota. I'm in Florida. We're 1,500, 1,800 miles apart.
Yeah.
And the waves, John's about 4 hours behind me. When I get hit with a wave of sedation, I can set a watch and say, okay, 4 hours later, John's going to get hit, and he gets hit. Exactly the same way. We have almost identical symptoms.
Yeah, the last several nights it's been that. We've been on the phone. I'm like,
yeah,
oh God, I gotta go to bed. I mean, it literally comes on like a cascade.
Yeah, I get hit at 5 o'clock. He gets hit about 9 o'clock typically with a wave, and then in the morning or the early afternoon, we'll get hit with a wave of it. Anyway, so some people say, "Oh no, that's not happening to me." Blah 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 blah. Well, most people I talk to, this is happening to. People who consume cannabis, who smoke weed, can't seem to detect it. They just say, I don't know what you're talking about, which I think the chemistry of something they're putting in it is probably similar to THC. THC sticks around your bloodstream for about 14 days afterwards and causes an alteration of your cognition for 14 days and then drops off almost like a light switch after 14 days.
Can I throw something into your discernment to your whole pattern of connecting dots and looking at this stuff? Obviously, my background is in addiction. I lived it. In the rooms of AA, you learn that one is too many and 1,000 is never enough, right? So the second that you introduce a chemical, where do I interject on this? Okay, so the idea is if you take one, you can't stop.
Right.
So there's the aspect of if we are being, unbeknownst to us, are taking that first one, this
Right.
could exacerbate addiction. Now, there's a psychological aspect to that because if you don't choose to put that first one in you,
Well, what if you don't even know you're being subjected to it?
yeah, it is the breaking mentally of the physically picking up and doing whatever it takes to put something inside of you that I think might be part of that exacerbating addiction. So it's possible that they're not one and the same, but I just thought I'd throw the idea out there.
Yeah, whatever they're putting in the air isn't just THC, for example. For, like, in my estimation, I'm guessing, but this is some really cool shit. Like, these guys know exactly what they're doing. It seems to sedate you. It seems to make your ability to take in information. It doesn't affect that at all. You can still absorb information just at the same rate you normally would, but it affects your cognitive ability to communicate with others. It affects your short-term memory. Like it kills your short-term memory just like THC does. John and I will have conversations, just forget what we were talking about right in the middle of it. And John and I normally, we're just completely fluid. We can talk for hours. But for the last 2 weeks, we've been so impaired that we're just going.
Were you on the Zoom call and beer Zoom call on Friday at all, Joe?
Yeah. Everybody's stoned.
I have never seen a room with 25 people in it as quiet as it was. Literally, there were several times over the course of a couple hours, nobody was talking. I've never
seen people saying, "I don't know what you're talking about," and then everybody in the room is going.
I want to add something to that, though. Okay, so I'm not saying you guys are wrong, but another just thing to add to your equation. What we went through the week prior to that, the week to remember, from Donald Trump getting shot in the ear, no matter what you believe it was, to the end of that week was literally boom, 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 boom.
The biggest
like
news that everybody should have tons of shit to talk about, right? And everybody sat there.
Well, it's also traumatic. What happens to some people when they're traumatized? I know I clam up.
Yeah, but Joe, we've been going through this for 7 years. Not once have I seen everybody go.
Yeah. I'm not saying you're wrong.
Yeah. So assumptions aside.
Yeah, let's move past that because this was just sort of the.
Yeah, this is to explain what was in our head.
Right.
So
I'm not sure you can explain it really.
Yeah, so I was thinking to myself, okay, we're drugged up. Let's assume that we're getting pretty close to saturation, meaning that they can't really drug us up much more. Now they have since then, which is kind of impressive. But I was thinking, okay, in the larger pattern of this whole thing that we're seeing a gigantic information operation. It's trying to get people to think for themselves. It's trying to get people to not trust information that comes from other sources. There's all these line item points that you could itemize out and say, okay, we need to get the left to do this. We need to get the right to do that. We need to get all the moderates to do this. When I kind of look at that in a large sense, I say, you know what? They've done that. They've been beating on people for years, and people pretty much have gotten the message. Something weird is going on. I'm not going to trust what anybody says anymore. I'm going to see for myself. And I want answers to questions. Okay. So I started thinking, what would tie this up? Because John and I have come up with a lot of predictions before that would tie up some of the narrative facts.
The social narrative stuff. That would have been the usefulness. And I still think aliens are coming, by the way. But for maybe
like climate change.
They use that trope for 75 years, and they're just going to let the alien trope die out without actually having something show up. I
think the aliens are going to show up, but toward the end of this explanation, we can touch on the aliens. It'll make a lot more sense once they understand this. Things like climate change, things like being able to choose your own gender.
CRT.
Yeah, tranny story hour. Sorry for using the T word, but things like the opening to the Olympics is just horrifying everybody. By the way, hats off to Andrew Tate, the Muslim who is defending Christianity over in Romania.
And so is Iran. Iran came out and said that France crossed red lines.
Yeah.
Crossed all red lines.
Iran said that?
Yeah, Iran said that.
The number of plot line reversals that are going on right now in the last 2 weeks, this wasn't happening before. The DNC is organizing white-only rallies for Kamala Harris. So it's like white dudes for Kamala.
Yeah, that's
Can you
weird.
say extremism, like white supremacy?
I saw conservative Ant talking about that. That's hysterical. You know what else? Yes, just go ahead.
There's no way that would happen in reality. Right. So there's proof it's a show, but all this shit it has gone bonkers right when we all get super sedated in the last couple of weeks. Okay. So right before all that crazy shit happened, I was sitting there thinking, how are they going to tie this up? And it occurred to me, I came up with a scenario that would tie it up. Now, we've since changed this a little bit, but my original thought was if Trump pops out at any time in the next 3 months, let's say, and says, okay, show's over. This was a big sting. And let's say Biden's next to him. And he says, during my first term, I put into action a sting of epic proportions. Biden was an actor and we got all the bad guys. The deep state is dead. There won't be an election this year. We're going to put it off for a year. We're going to have to clean up this mess. Hundreds of people have already been arrested. Okay. Every single line item can be solved in the following year by just showing evidence of corruption in that topic. So, for example, climate change. If you have hidden camera sting footage of officials at NASA and officials at NOAA and politicians getting bribed to push a climate change narrative so people can make money, you will kill the climate change narrative.
This is exactly how you destroy all of those things. Climate change, the trannies, you could have
everything, every single thing.
Her name, Weingarten, the NEA person. You could have big pharma talking about the money they're going to make for this, and all this backroom discussions that were
COVID,
that were COVID, vaccine. Especially the vaccine.
Obama, are you going to see Oval Office conversations where they're committing treason? I think you will.
I think this fits. Wait, hold that thought. I think this fits with what you're talking about. Listen to this.
My son, essentially. So my son Xavier is dead, killed by the woke mind virus.
I'm sorry to hear that.
I was essentially tricked into signing documents. I was told Xavier might commit suicide. It wasn't explained to me that puberty blockers are actually just sterilization drugs.
I can't imagine what that would be like.
Yeah. So I vowed to destroy the woke mind virus after that, and we're making some progress.
Yeah. Now, what's interesting though is when you think about this from a puppet master standpoint, you can literally rewrite what you want everybody to believe by just showing them evidence that corruption was happening to make you think this way when it's actually that way. People hate corruption now so much that they'll believe whatever you tell them should have been happening. So it's kind of a choose your own adventure for the people who are puppeteering it.
Let's go back though and do this sequentially because what happened was we said, all right, it certainly feels like things have accelerated between the assassination attempt, now the Olympics, kind of the stuff heating up around the world. You've got the war drums banging with Iran and all of that stuff, and Israel possibly taking action in the next couple of days. They didn't react immediately, but that they're talking about doing it. So all of this stuff feels like it's a crescendo. And so
John, before we go into that, let's stick to how we discovered it, because I came up with that, and then I talked to you for I think a couple days, and we were kicking it around. Yep. And then we got on the phone with a good friend who's also one of the smartest people I know, and we were just having a conversation, and he gave us really good feedback and said, "Well, what does the congressional calendar look like? When could this happen? What does the school calendar look like?"
I can tell who you were talking to. Just
it's actually.
So the last day of the House is August 1 this week, this Thursday, and the last day of the Senate is August 2nd. And we were just talking around like, you know what? If I were writing the script, you could have stuff happen on the 31st, which is when we think it's going to happen. This is the date fact.
Well, yeah, it's going to go crazy on the 31st. It won't flip until later, but
right. But that's when it starts. So the 31st, this is what we think. The 31st. You have mainstream media, the media saying, We have the media has all been moved back to a really wide perimeter from the Capitol building. All these buses have pulled in. They've got one of those awnings coming down the stairs. We don't know what's going on. And then at some point during that day, CNN, the floor feeds show, and this will be repeated for the next 10 days over the media. You see the doors open, law enforcement, probably marshals, maybe Capitol Police. They come in and you see visible zip tie handcuffs.
Yeah.
And then the feed's cut.
Right. And they won't let the press near the building so nobody can see exactly what's going on. And we think for about 10 days, this is 10 days darkness. Not 10 days of darkness. You never said that. It's 10 days darkness. We think for 10 days, nobody's going to know what's going on, but the rumor mill is going to be pumping out just a sea of shit.
It also misspelled once to 10 days darn kiss.
Well, in one place, it's darn kiss, which means a mending kiss.
Yeah.
Which we think is aliens, but it can also have multiple meanings. But so we think for 10 days, it's going to go kind of nuts. Now, the reason we think that is because we started thinking, okay, if Trump's going to do a presser and he's going to get up and say all this stuff, you know, the deep state's dead, elections pushed off for a year, I'm president, all this stuff. What would be the most effective way to do that? Well, doing arrests first would make the most sense. So we started trying to find a pocket that wouldn't interfere with the school schedule, because you don't want college kids to be off at school when everybody thinks the world's going to end, right? Because that's just going to stress out parents like crazy. Okay, so it should happen before the school schedule starts and college kids start leaving, okay? And it should fit in a way that makes sense for the news cycle with a congressional calendar. But we knew it had to be fast, and this is mid-June. So we're looking at, where's this going to happen? We found a perfect pocket.
This is where then we started looking at the drops.
Right.
Because originally we were saying, well, maybe they go in on August 1st. And then I went and I found this drop. I'm sharing it right now, Joe, if you want to go to it.
This will blow your mind.
Okay, so this is drop 1827. It's on the 9th of August. I can increase this.
Which, by the way, that's my birthday. I may get the best birthday present in all of human history.
So this clip is a clip of Deadpool sitting in a theater, laughing, trying to eat popcorn and take a drink through his mask that doesn't have a hole in it. And Anon writes, enjoying every second of it. So now, okay, again, this is August 9th. Q writes, comfy, previews are over, showtime. This is at 9 o'clock Eastern on the 9th.
PM.
Yeah. So
which is
what
perfect timing.
Yeah. What if there's an announcement? First of all, you have 10 days where the mainstream media is getting no official confirmation from the White House as to, or any part of the government as to what's going on. It's dark. And the speculation is that Biden is arresting his enemies.
Yeah. I think there's going to be a whole bunch of Republicans arrested, and the rumor mill is going to be saying that Biden is committing a coup against his political rivals, right? But at the same time, I think world events are going to be making it look like there's nuclear war that's about to happen. Biden may do some incredibly stupid shit. We don't know.
I don't know if we're going to see Biden. That's what I think. I think it's all going to be rumor mill, and it's probably going to come from both ways.
Yeah.
And so, okay, you go from the 9th in this particular drop to 1828 and 1829. So it's just 29 quotes 28. And if you look at this, think about it like this being a Venn diagram, or not a Venn. that's camel toe talking. This is a like an org chart.
Yeah, bubble chart.
Called okay, so you got the spy op. That's what this whole thing is. And so all of this stuff, you guys can go there. I'm not going to walk through it and be pedantic, but each of these little carrots is one level below from the top, and how they all are connected to each other. So we think what it is on the 9th, there would be an EBS, and it would say presidential press conference at 9 p.m. tonight. And everyone will be watching because nobody will have seen Biden or know what's going on. This is going to be the first official word in 10 days.
Yeah, I think there might actually be a scare event that evening.
Possibly.
That causes an EBS and says POTUS will address the nation at this time, 9 p.m., right? 9 p.m. Eastern is perfect timing to get the maximum people across the country to see whatever it is.
Yep.
Okay, so this, like John said, is kind of a bubble diagram, but all this information you see here distills down into the legal predicate that would authorize POTUS to do whatever he needed to address an attack on the nation.
John, hold on, John, blow that up one more or two more, and then you should be able to click and grab and scroll through maybe, or see if you can even make there you go.
Okay, so we don't need to go through this one entirely, just because it's super pedantic, but everybody's seen these. If you're familiar with Q, you've seen these drops. These are where they have basically Valerie Jarrett, Dennis McDonough, John Brennan, Rahm Emanuel, John Kerry, whatever.
Yeah.
I can't remember them.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, all of this stuff distills down into the constitutional legal predicate that a POTUS would require to interpret an attack as a state of war.
This is the justification. I think there's this EBS, and I think all the cameras are on the presidential podium, and I think Trump walks out, and people are like, "What?"
Everybody's going to think it's going to be Biden. It's not.
And Trump says, basically, in however he says it, "I'm still your president. I've been your president this whole time. This is the conclusion of the largest sting in history. And I'm going to explain it now. We're going to have more press conferences in the coming days. Here is what happened."
Right.
And
do you know the only way this works? Hold on. Do you know the only way this works? This doesn't. The only way this works in my head is if the fake lamestream media praises the idea.
We'll get to that. We think it's going to be grosser, but
yep.
So we found these drops on the 9th, and we said, okay, that looks perfect. So we said, in order to check it, we have to check before the 9th, and we have to check after the 9th to see what the content is. Everything before the 9th looks like a shit show ramp up to this, okay, where you can't really tell what's going on, but it's just super chaotic. And everything after it looks like daily press briefings dumping out everything that came out in the Q boards in the first 2 years. So everything about Epstein, child trafficking, Haiti, all these topics are in there.
I have a thought to add to that. The week to remember was so loaded with surface level Q drops hitting that I think it expanded minds to the possibility, again, that the drops are real. And I'm not talking about us, obviously. But look, I upset people because I went so hard, like instantly, right? I processed my emotions in the driveway in under 30 seconds. I walked back into my house after seeing Donald Trump get shot in the ear, and I instantly went to the drops, and oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable. It was unbelievable how much it lined up.
So
go ahead.
Go ahead.
No,
I was just going to say, so we checked everything before the 9th for the 10 days, and everything looked like this shit's going to kick off on the 31st, because if you count from the 31st to the 9th, that's an even 10-day window. And then on the 9th, they flip it at 9 p.m. Eastern. And then for 20 days, you get what looks like daily pressers, just like COVID. Trump was coming out every day and giving everybody a status update on what was happening. It looks like they're going to be dumping out daily batches of corruption and saying these people have been arrested. This has been going on. This is what they were doing. Here's a little infographic, blah, 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 blah. They go on. And we think the press, the mainstream, will be fighting this more feverishly than they've ever fought anything before. And we think the social media is going to be just putting up the video of Trump everywhere. It might be getting censored like whack-a-mole, but the word will be getting out of what's going on, but the media will be fighting it. And that will further convince people that there are bad guys that are fighting for their lives, right? Because at the end of all this, it just needs to look like a narrative that everybody can believe and accept, that ties up all the loose ends, and everybody's going to live happily ever after, right? It doesn't matter how chaotic it is to get there. In fact, the more chaotic it is, the more believable it is, because we have a good versus evil struggle.
I sure hope they're pumping more sedatives into California and New York City than they are everywhere else.
I think in the next 12 days, we could get even more impaired, and I think that's why I'm buying more Red Bull, man.
So So I'll show some of these drops, some of the ones that we thought were more significant. I just got to find the right one here.
Yeah, I'm going to warn everybody while John's pulling that up. Shortly after we look at these next few drops, if you are watching on YouTube, we have a bunch of clips that we're going to add to this conversation and the conversation about assassination that we're going to wrap the show up with that I don't believe will fly over there. I got booted off there for playing a Joe M video about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago now. And so I am trying to keep that platform up and running so that we can get everybody involved over on the other platforms. While I'm doing this little thing where I'm interrupting, if you could, on all those platforms, hit that positive affirmation button, thumbs up on Rumble, take that red pill on pill.net. Over on X, please share the show out, throw a comment in there. And if you're on YouTube, know that here just shortly, I am going to end that stream. You have all of those other platforms to come join us on, Rumble, Pilled, and X, all of which, well, X is at brainstorm_Joe, but the other two are everything else is called Rambo and Frens, one word. Go ahead, John. Sorry.
All right, so I just shared another one. This is from August 6th. I mean, if you guys know how to search at QAG, it's really easy to see all the deltas. I can show you that in a bit. But okay, so I'm just going to scroll down. That doesn't all that much matter. But what we were looking for in the drops is not necessarily everything in the drop. It was more some stuff that phrases and things like that would be in the drop that would be not necessarily part of or in context of that drop. So in this case, I think the real drop starts here. That's relevant to the 6th. So this is before. This is it during the darkness, right? America was systematically being weakened. Our military weakened. America first. This is what happens when POTUS has no strings attached. Now this one is really important because we are going to get a civics lesson. Americans are going to get a civics lesson. Paul and I have been saying this for a long time, and we got a lot of flack early for it, saying no, that means that the POTUS could be a dictator. POTUS can be a dictator.
Yep.
POTUS must take care that the laws be enforced. That's in the Constitution.
Hold on. I want you to re-emphasize that point because people, even when you say it, they let it slide in one ear and out the other because they're so inept to believe that there is only two terms, that the POTUS is limited to so many things, right? This is a point I like to drive home because people just don't grasp the concept. They have been conditioned to believe it's impossible.
It's actually very simple.
Yeah, say it again for me, please.
Sure. POTUS can do whatever he deems necessary in his own head to take care that the laws of this country be enforced. That means that posse comitatus is unconstitutional. The military cannot take away, the legislative branch cannot take away a very key power of the executive branch to take care of and suppress rebellion.
Well, and also in this case, if the POTUS decides by himself with his sole discretion, and this was confirmed in 1963 or 1863 with the prize cases, the prizes case. I always get that wrong. If POTUS believes there's a state of war, POTUS can do whatever he wants, regardless of everything. He can disable parts of the Constitution at will. The only recourse is he can be impeached for it, and he can be tried for treason.
Correct. Which is why they did all of this precedent-setting stuff about right. So, not only that, but he also spotlighted and highlighted Article 2 over and over and over again.
Yeah, and that's where this is. Basically, when there's an attack, either foreign or domestic, and in this case, it's both, and that's what that first, predicate slide 1828 was about. There's the predicate for a foreign attack and a domestic attack on the United States. So that's a state of war. POTUS can do whatever he wants. He can put off elections. He can fake an administration. He can do whatever he wants. And the only recourse is impeachment.
Joe, I'm sharing another screen. If you guys don't believe us, go and read Federalist 70. So we've talked about this a bunch, but for those of you that aren't maybe as familiar with what the Federalist Papers were, before the Constitution was ratified, Madison and Hamilton, one other guy wrote a few, but they wrote the bulk of these Federalist letters. They were like letters to the editor to try to explain to the American public what was actually let me blow this up a little bit.
What was meant by the language in the Constitution?
Yes. What were the founders thinking when they put this on here? So Federalist 70 talks about a vigorous executive branch. Okay. And so what Hamilton says here in the highlighted, we already know that they modeled our republic on Rome. Rome was the ideal. And he says this: every man that is familiar with Rome knows how often that republic was obliged to take refuge in the absolute power of a single man under the formidable title of dictator, as well as against the intrigues and da da da. So the point being here that Hamilton, they knew that this would be.
They knew POTUS could be a dictator.
It might be necessary. I mean, if you look at, again, the words obliged to take refuge, these guys knew what they were putting in the Constitution. Yeah. They knew that because Rome had suffered several times when the Senate, or I guess it was just the Senate, was corrupt. And so then you have a Caesar declare himself to be emperor and throw the republic out the window and be the dictator. That is exactly what the founders intended for POTUS. And people have been, this has been so obscured.
By the way, I would like to point out that it is not uncommon when there's a vagueness in the Constitution. If you look back through the Supreme Court's deliberations on these things, they do refer to the Federalist Papers to gain insight into what the wording in the Constitution should mean. So this isn't just some articles that were written but doesn't have force of law. It actually does in the interpretation of the Supreme Court. And the issue we're talking about POTUS being able to do things that would otherwise be unconstitutional has already been decided in 1863 in the Prizes case.
Yeah, that was just so people understand that even though the Constitution gives the declaration of war power that's vested in Congress, in the legislative branch, POTUS affirmed that if the president believes we're at war, if war is a matter of fact, that the president can do whatever, and he doesn't have to wait for Congress to baptize it with a name.
He doesn't even have to tell anyone. He can just give orders.
But he did, though.
Yeah, well, all we're saying is this is there. It's already been ruled on by the Supreme Court and reinforced that way. And it's very possible that the narrative that's put out there on the 9th, as we think, is going to be that Trump did this. And he just did really weird stuff. And people can argue about it all they want. But I think what we're going to see is 50 constitutional scholars on TV going, no, he can absolutely do this. It's all legal.
It might even get somehow fast tracked into SCOTUS when they resume in October. I don't think it will. Maybe it will.
Now, maybe we'll see 20 constitutional scholars get on mainstream media and say, no, he's a rogue, tyrant, blah, 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 blah. And then SCOTUS rules on it and says, no, actually, he can do that. And then there you go.
I think part of what will come away from all of this is Americans, at least those who aren't seagrass, who Americans who are thinking will understand their Constitution a million times better than they do now.
Okay, so
cool anymore.
Well, John. So all of my research leads what you're saying. It gives it credibility because. Look, I pick up on all the anomalies and I try to connect the dots that way. You guys are digging back the same way that, Feisty and Sargent and so many others do. And you're coming to your own conclusions, which are more than legit. But if you stay on the surface level and you watch the news, they're telling you things between Donald Trump's words and the news, telling you things that are literally pointing back historically. Donald Trump told you we're sort of in my second term right now. We just don't want the results of this term, right? That can be taken.
There was a wartime president, too.
He said, I'm a wartime president. There's never been an attack like this.
He also said, I caught them all.
I caught them all, right? We could do this for days. Yeah. And then you got the news saying things like he watched Joe Biden's thing from Air Force One. Then you got, this goes on. I know it's cartoon narrative. Yeah. But then you got things like this assassination attempt, which point back to multiple presidents in history. Mm-hmm. So obviously you got Ray, or who was it that got shot and didn't die?
Reagan.
Yeah, Reagan. So you got Reagan's assassination attempt, And then you got Joe Biden bowing out. And who's that point to? But LBJ, the most corrupt president, depending on which side you're on, the most corrupt president in American history, all the way to murder, potentially. Right? So they're literally giving us a history lesson while exposing it all.
Yeah, and
What?
they're also showing you that you shouldn't trust documents that you see because there's stuff saying, on all sides of all arguments, there's stuff proving supposedly that things happen. For example, in 1964, there's a declassified document that says Kennedy and Eisenhower were briefed on stuff, and Kennedy should have been dead at that point. So is that a clerical error or is that true? Was Kennedy killed?
Or is that a plant? I mean, we can get into all this. This is beyond the cartoon narrative, though.
Yeah.
So I think the way that Trump explains it, whatever is said on that very first reveal is going to have to be incontrovertible. It'll be seen as incontrovertible later.
Yeah.
But they're going to fight. The mainstream media will. Cartoon narrative, they're going to fight. There's still deep state elements.
They're going to say it was all fake. I mean, you're going to see it in the White House, and then they're going to say it's all fake. And then everybody's going to, the whole left is going to say, oh, Trump faked a video, and oh, you believe it, you're an idiot, right? And the whole right wing is going to go, oh, I knew it, he was president, right? And then it's going to be this food fight, just like Animal House, food fight. That's what we're going to get for 20 days.
So what if I saw somebody, Mama W said PEDS. I don't know what they used, whether it was PEDS or what. I mean, it's probably something completely novel.
PEDS aren't constitutional unless POTUS thinks there's a state of war. And if POTUS thinks there's a state of war, he doesn't need PEDS.
I think what he'll do is he'll say, look, we know this information will come out. We know the election was stolen. We monitored. We have confessions. You will see all of this in the coming weeks. It will be incontrovertible. We will even have live confessions. But essentially, I remained as president, but we allowed them to commit the crime.
Yeah. And
yet we wanted to do this sooner. We know that people have been hurt economically throughout this whole thing. We know that bad things have happened. We moved as fast as we could, but we could not pull the trigger until we had everybody. And here we are. So, Joe, I'm going to share another drop on the 10th, 1837. There we go. So this will be part of the fight narrative. We are under extreme heavy attack by 3 intel agencies, foreign and domestic.
This is the Saturday after the Friday of the first presser. So basically the first presser lights it up the following day. MSM goes bazonkers, and it looks like there's just huge clown attacks everywhere.
Yep. This one is good. This is another one from the 10th. These are in reverse order. Sorry, folks. Doesn't matter. But this is on the 10th. Q plus, we all know that's Trump. They never thought she would lose. Now they all lose. So this is the beginning of the end. And then I didn't pull all the drops, but I pulled the ones that seem to fit this scenario that we had. Does POTUS make statements that are false? Yeah, Anon's no, he doesn't do that. Knowing what you know now, isn't that interesting, right? Like, okay,
yeah. I like this drop.
Yeah, this is a great drop. Think Haiti, think Watergate Commission. Never stop praying, yeah, because they're under assault.
Right. But also look at the 12 and the 1440.
Let me address that though. Does POTUS make statements that are false? What he does is brilliantly speak out of both sides, if not 3 sides or 4 sides of his mouth.
Yeah. Yeah.
When he says Joe Biden's shot, everybody says, well, my favorite running back's knee was shot at one time. And I'm like, no, I think he's telling you the truth. And he does it so much.
Yeah. And they also take things out of context like this. Yesterday everybody was flipping out because he said, oh, after this next time you vote, you won't have to vote anymore. It's totally taken out of context. He was talking about people who don't normally vote. And, anyway, so one of the things I want to point out about this particular drop is look at the 12 and the 1440. How much of a Q proof would it be if the presser on that Saturday starts at noon and then at 2:40, the topic of Haiti comes up?
That'd be interesting.
Yeah. What would the odds be? So I think that may be why that's in there.
I think that the statements that this is referring to are going to be the statements that POTUS is making in these press conferences. That Trump will be saying all of this stuff. Is he saying false stuff? Because again, the media is going to fight it.
Can you do me a favor? Because we're
Yes.
at the 1 hour mark. What I'd
Yep.
like you to do, if you don't mind, I don't care
Yep.
which one of you does it. You guys choose. Give a brief timeline of your completely breaking the rules version of date fagging, and give a short timeline again. Summarize quickly, as surface level as you can, the prediction, and then I'm going to get rid of YouTube so we can start adding some clips to the content.
Go, Paul.
Okay. Today's the 29th. We think in 2 days, things really start to hit the fan, and we go into 10 days of essentially information chaos where nobody knows exactly what's going on, but enough information has come out that people are saying, holy shit, what's going on in DC? Right? Lots of rumors about people being arrested. I think there's a good possibility of a war escalation. Like, look at what's going on with Turkey and Israel and Iran. And so that could happen within that 10-day period. On August 9th, which is on the 10th day, we think Trump comes out and announces that he's been president the whole time. And there's actually a modification to what we've said before. We now don't think he's going to say Biden was fake. We think they're going to make Biden look like a bad guy.
I think they might actually say Biden died. And you all know that's an actor that they put in there, right?
Yeah.
If you're not questioning Joe Biden's appearance at this point, between being 4, 5, 6 inches taller, the facial, the nuts on the chin, I mean, if you're not questioning the green screens with the hands through the microphones, if you can't look at this whole process and understand that there's legitimate questions about Joe Biden, Donald Trump saying he biggest mask you've ever seen, right? We could do this for an hour. If you're not questioning that at this point, you got some serious looking in the mirror to do.
Right. So August 9th, presser at 9 p.m., we think, Trump announces that he's still president. The mainstream media fights it. Everybody argues it's, dogs and cats living together in the street for 20 days. And then after that, pretty much everybody accepts the narrative. And the bad guys have been pointed out. Everybody's been arrested. And we move on with what's going to be a slow and arduous process of cleaning this mess up. We don't think it's all going to be over in, lollipops and unicorns. But it'll quiet down, because if you look on the 29th of August, there's a bunch of Q drops that look like they're disabling all sorts of communications facilities. Yeah. And we think they'll make it look like they cut the bad guys off from their ability to do all that fighting.
Donald Trump said, we will see how bad they've done so that we can do what has to be done, because everybody will agree with us. It'll be easier to do what has to be done because everybody will agree with us. And the drops told us, show not told. You have to work through the darkness before you can see the light.
Right.
It all lines up so perfectly. I don't know about your dates. I hope and pray you're right.
And more importantly, every prediction we've come up with so far has failed.
It's been brilliant.
But no prediction that we came up before could solve everything. This would solve everything. This takes care of every single narrative and every single problem they can clean up, and they're perfectly positioned to do it. And also, I really want to clarify, John suggested this, and it actually took him quite a while to sell me on the idea because I hated the idea, but I think he's right. And I figured that Trump would be saying, yeah, Biden, actor Biden was part of the sting, right? And John came back and said, I don't know. I think they might make Biden look like a bad guy puppet. And the reason it was such a bad job is because the bad guys are just incompetent. And from a rational, sensible standpoint, and looking at all the information we've looked at, I look at that and think, there's no way that's reality. But that's because I'm not thinking like the average person on the street. The average person on the street has not spent the time to look into all this shit. They haven't digested all this information. They have very little information, and they trust the media. Yep. So at the end of all this shit on the 29th, when the media flips and starts reporting Trump's truth, they are going to believe that scenario more likely than they would believe the scenario that Trump faked Biden.
Yeah, I think it's going to end up being overwhelming. But it will be. So, by the way, that 20 days after the 9th, where we come up with that is 10 days of darkness and plus another 20 done in 30. Maybe.
We don't know.
I mean, there are more drops into September though that talk about MSM attack.
Yeah. So somewhere in there, we think there's a scare event. We don't know whether it's going to be before the flip or after. I kind of like the idea that it's before the night, but it could be after. It could be during that 20 days because they could be making it look like the bad guys are fighting back. Somewhere in there, but I don't think a scare event has happened. I don't think COVID scared people nearly enough.
Wait,
No,
you don't think Donald Trump?
I think we need incoming nukes. I mean, it's got to be something bad.
You want to be a really? I'm going to throw this one out there. This is just a complete spitball, right? Well, this whole thing is a spitball. It's a date fag, but
Big spitball.
what? So Paul and I were talking about. Well, what would be a scare event? What would qualify?
Shooting the president in his ear?
No. This is much worse.
No, because half the liberals all love that. They're pissed off. They missed.
I can't believe you missed.
So what if
I can't wait to talk to you guys about that. By the way, we're going to end the show that way. Go ahead.
All right. So what if though at some point, you have the EBS comes out and says we've detected, 10 or 15 incoming ICBMs. They appear to be coming from China. This is your warning. Get to your lowest level possible. All of the sirens are going off. 30 minutes to impact.
Yeah.
People are going to freak the fuck out, right? Maybe 10 minutes later, though.
They might do that at 8 p.m. on the 9th and then put out an EBS and everyone's watching TV at 9 p.m.
Let me finish this before I freak too many people out, right?
Yeah.
Let's say, though, that they announce it, 30 minutes to impact, get to the lowest level, all the sirens are going off, everybody's really fucking freaked. 10 minutes later, they go, there is no longer a threat. These missiles appear to have self-destructed. We are looking into it. We will let you know what we know. There is no more danger right now from incoming ICBMs. Sometime in the following couple of days, can you imagine if...
Wait, do you remember when Trump told us that we knew they were going to fire the missiles into the desert? They weren't actually going to fire the missiles at us. That's what it sounds like.
It could just be NLP. They're getting missiles in people's minds.
Yeah. Okay. So what if in the days following, President Xi comes out and he says he does a press conference for the world, right? Or maybe it's just internal, but it comes out to everybody, and he says, I have been taking down the CCP since I started. They killed my parents. The communists killed my parents. I've never been a communist. You may have seen when I took Jintao out of the vote when they voted me in for life. I have been working on corruption since I got into power, and I have been working with President Donald Trump.
Yep.
And the CCP is no more in China.
Right.
Gone.
Xi could just arrest the whole top end of the CCP almost at the same time as Trump arrests all the bad guys here, and it would be completely believable.
Did you guys see the story about the almost the head guy of the Sinaloa cartel being arrested?
Yeah,
and he's working with the United States to
Well,
take out Chapo.
Very recently, these little events have been popping up that are getting more numerous, and that's, I think, because we're about to go into the 10 days of chaos before this.
Love you guys. I freaking love you too.
Alan Thomason says, I see scarves and doors in their near future. Oh, yeah.
Doorknobs.
Suicide Weekend. I mean, that's I've got that drop somewhere in here. But I don't know what's going to happen. This was just a kind of a total brainstorm. Like, well, what would really scare people? What would make people... What would give them the will to change?
100 incoming nukes would scare the shit out of people.
There's only two things. It's that it's some sort of world war scenario or collapse of the financial system. And I don't necessarily believe that we're going to see a full collapse of the financial system. I think it's going to change without us completely being aware.
You know what? Trump's announcement on a Friday at 9 p.m. when the stock markets are closed. Every trader is going to be going, what is going to happen on Monday?
Yeah.
Right? What's going to happen with after-hour trading? Because the market could go down or it could go up.
Am I the only one that bought crypto when Trump did his crypto speech?
I didn't. I've never touched crypto. I won't touch it with a 10-foot
I
pole.
made like $8. I made like $8.
It's worth $8 million now.
I'm pretty broke right now, so I didn't put much in there. But all right, let's do this. Let's get rid of YouTube, so then I can feel free to start throwing clips into this conversation.
Somebody said in the chat, by the way, that they thought YouTube already cut it. Can you tell?
It still has a green check mark. I don't know.
All right.
Somebody in the chat, let me know if that happened. If
Well,
that
you know,
happened, I'll be disappointed. I might give up if that.
The less exposure we get, the more we know we're correct. So
True that.
If this all happens, the credibility of anons and other people digging, searching, and talking about things like this skyrockets, and I think that's already happening with the way that the drops are lining up.
Well, and also keep in mind when we came up with this 2 weeks ago, the last 2 weeks of crazy stuff hadn't happened yet. So we were completely guessing and trying to fit it in, and it fit. But now that the last 2 weeks have gone by, it's like twice as likely. So
somebody said Amy in 1980. She said that it shut her out 12 minutes ago. I'm gonna look real quick. You guys talk for a second.
So that Suicide Weekend drop is post 1933. I'm just looking. That Delta is August 26th, which is a Monday this year. So they've just come off a weekend.
Yeah. So on that Friday, they announced something that makes a whole bunch of bad guys go, "Oh, I'm doomed."
And it is a Monday. It says we are in control. Big week ahead. I mean, go look at the drops yourselves. You guys decide. I mean, this is what Paul and I are seeing. So many of the drops in August have to do with all of the conspiracies, the Russiagate stuff, the FISA-gate stuff, dossier, Haiti, child trafficking.
Yeah, it's like a weird enumeration of all the major topics from the first 2 years of the Q boards.
Yep.
Also, I want to point this out. They love pulling the football away from Charlie Brown. So it is also possible that this is a very highly engineered false pattern that, you know, they're suckering us into making another bad prediction and we're falling for it.
Okay, wait. So that's possible, right? That's possible, but at this point in time, in my opinion, it is impossible for something like what you were predicting to not be on its way. It's impossible.
Something
has to clean this all up. So this is all highly scripted.
Kamala Harris being propped up as if she could beat Donald Trump is the most laughable shit I've ever seen in my life.
It's total absurdity.
It's completely insane.
It's ludicrous speed.
Yeah, the one rally I watched, there's like two people in front of the camera doing seagrass hands in front of the camera, and then they would cut away to a gymnasium stands, and then they would cut back to her with the two grass hands in front of her. It was the most laughable thing I've ever seen. No one is going to a freaking Kamala Harris rally. No one. Meanwhile, Trump gets shot in the ear, people die, and then he has 30, 40,000 people at the next 2 or 3 rallies. He goes to Bitcoin. The dude's everywhere. Yeah. He's been campaigning for 4 years.
Yeah. And in the next 2 weeks, it's going to get even stupider.
And we're all to believe that Heels Up Harris she didn't even get 2%.
Yeah.
She didn't even get 2% before she got picked for vice president. And everyone laughed out loud when that happened. Word salad is on next level absurdity. Yeah. I can't even spit out the things she always says, the future or whatever. I can't even say it. It's so retarded.
This is why I figured that Trump would come out with Biden and say that the whole thing was a high level show to catch all the lower level people. But I actually think it's more probable that they just make it look like that was the bad guys.
Yeah.
And everyone will believe it, except people who've looked at it as closely as we have. And we're going to sit there and say, we're now the conspiracy theorists, and everybody in the world believes the narrative they've been told because indoctrination works. I mean, look at what we've been seeing from the Anon community over the last 3 years, right? People will tell you to your face, I don't believe anything on TV. And then they'll spend, 8 hours a day pushing around clips of what they saw on TV.
Right.
Yeah.
They aren't thinking for themselves.
I
So-
put clips of the news up, and I always title them something similar to Psychological Warfare 101.
Yeah. I
'Cause
mean,
it's
John and I,
bullshit.
for the last year, we haven't been married to the idea that anybody's a good guy or a bad guy. We've just been trying to figure out what's going on in general,
Yep.
so that we can piece it all together.
This is a good question. Before we bounce, Paul, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but this is a good one before we get rid of YouTube. Why Vance? Because
Did you see the liberals making fun of the conservatives because they're all going to vote for two guys who wear makeup?
Yeah.
Vance wears eyeliner and Trump's got orange makeup on. And so they're saying, oh, you don't like trannies, but you're going to vote for two guys who wear makeup.
did you see Vance's movie? Did you guys see Vance's movie?
Mm-mm.
Did
No.
you know he did a I didn't either, and I hate to admit this on the show because it's gonna smack my credibility a little bit, but I can't help it. There's 5 kids in this house, and there's debates on whether or not to use Amazon. There's debates on whether or not to use Netflix, right? But I don't always win all the debates, even though I'm trying to influence them. They're all becoming patriots. They're all going to vote for Trump, but like the boys still love football, right? I can't win them all. So Netflix is still in my house, right? Long way to say that. But last night, before bed, I know, right? Everybody burn me at the stake, but it's the case. There's a movie on Netflix called Hillbilly
Elegy.
Yes. What is it?
His book. He wrote that book.
Yes. Well, there's a movie version. I watched it last night. I don't know how much of it is true. I don't know how much of it is propaganda, but it was interesting because his mom's a full-blown heroin addict. It's a super interesting movie. If any of you are still in that position that I am, where Netflix is still accessible and you still use it for whatever reason it might be, kids or whatever your reason is, I do suggest watching it. There's some really odd messaging in it. If that's his book, I will say the movie wasn't bad. I'm disappointed in myself for supporting Netflix. However, the movie was interesting.
I wouldn't worry about supporting Netflix or not. The same with
I
watching.
wouldn't either.
I don't think any of it's bad. I mean, but
John and I have
we're
a
outside
different
the
opinion.
cartoon narrative right now. This is.
Yeah, everything we're talking about is the narrative that the mass population will believe, and I think the most pointed way I can say it without getting too into trouble is that there's more going on that you don't see, and in order to figure out how that more works, you have to do a shitload of digging and understanding and figure out the philosophy for the last 6,000 years. It's not easy to get your head around. It's extremely not intuitive, but there are extremely good reasons for why it's the way it is. And so what people are going to end up believing isn't specifically the exact truth, but it's a truth that the population can believe to get the species on the right footing to move forward.
Yep.
All right, let me get rid of YouTube because I wanna dive into some of the assassination stuff as soon as we do any clips that might go along with what you guys are saying. So if you're over there on YouTube, look, I love all of you, and I'm trying to reach that platform and the people that only do YouTube. But YouTube's not going to let me do everything that we do on the other platforms. So now comes that moment where I have to disconnect those, but the show will continue for probably at least another 45 minutes to an hour on Rumble, on Pill.net, and also on my X channel. Soon to be at a Rambo and Frens Facebook will also be going live. I just can't do it on my personal one. I was given a big fat no when I asked because in school and all that. But there will be Facebook coming up. There will be some podcasting platforms as well. So if you're over there on YouTube, before I connect, please do me a favor, share the show out, hit the positive affirmation button, and please come join us. Rumble is the biggest platform where the most people hang out right now to watch the show, but Pill.net is an awesome platform. If anybody hasn't been there, please go check that out.
By the way, Joe,
yeah,
on Rumble, if you search for Rambo and Frens with a D, you won't find it. You got to spell it Frens.
Yeah, I should have thought of about that in the beginning, but I was just like kind of being me, as I always am.
Yeah.
I try to keep it real. But yes, the Frens, Frens, is a hat tip to the Pepe meme that has become cultural within this movement. So that's what it is. So it's Rambo and Frens, Frens, one word, on Rumble, on Pill.net, and it's Joe Rambo at brainstorm_Joe on X. We also have Telegram, and I'm also on True Social. I'm still trying to build those two, but X is my main platform. So, all right. To all you guys over on YouTube, absolutely love you, but I'm going to bounce right now. Come join us on the other platforms. Much love. Peace.